introduce Amanda on our team, who's going to introduce our guest.
Hi everyone, I'm Amanda. I'm the Outreach Program Coordinator here at the EC, and I'm happy today to be introducing Anshuman Vohra. He is a William & Mary graduate turned alumni founder, and at William & Mary he played Division I tennis and majored in finance. After graduation, he spent over 6 years in investment banking with JP Morgan. As someone with an innate entrepreneurial spirit, Anshuman never saw the world of finance as his final destination. Instead, wanting to work for himself, he became increasingly aware that he was the only one his age drinking gin and talking about it enthusiastically, a passion he puts down to his father, who was an avid gin drinker and introduced it to him at a relatively early age. Anshuman conceptualized and created Bulldog in 2007, a premium gin that quickly became the fastest growing gin in the world, available in more than 160 countries in the top 5 premium gin globally. In 2017, he sold the company to Grupo Kamari and began a new venture by co-founding Halo Sport, a next-generation version of vitamin water, with a vision to revolutionize how the world hydrates. As CEO, Anshuman is still passionate about competitive tennis and sports as a whole, so he brings his experience in branding and creating new consumer goods, building premium, distinctive, global lifestyle brands to forever change the industry. So please join me in giving Anshuman a warm welcome.
Thank you, Amanda. Thanks, man. Before I start, it's great to be back at William & Mary. I don't get here often enough, but as you get older and more time goes by since you graduated, you like to see more. The memories of getting up, on the weekend studying, getting killed in academics. You have greater memories of that time. This place is awesome. But the older I get, the more I miss it. Did everybody get some Halo?
Yeah.
And some glasses? You can mix it. It tastes better with cold water. That's always my recommendation. But that's all I should say I did. So, Grant asked me to kind of talk about being an entrepreneur and what it's like. And I said, man, that'll take me like weeks to actually give you guys the real story. But I thought today I'd focus a little bit on the struggle. Because I think sometimes when people think about being an entrepreneur, you kind of think about a guy or a woman who started something and that is, they build a business, they scale it, they have an exit, and you look at them sort of ringing the bell at the stock exchange or giving a speech at a party, and you're like, man, I wanted to talk a little about what's in between those two phases, which is a lot of character building, lately. So my story is I'm a class of 2000 graduate. I played tennis. Shout out to the lacrosse team here. It's nice to see you. Long live William & Mary lacrosse. That's what I say. And I started investment banking. Shortly after starting investment banking, I realized I was like, this is a great way to kill yourself and lose your soul. And I wasn't that passionate about it. And I realized early on that unless I was passionate about something, I wasn't really going to be very good at it because it wouldn't spark this innate desire of mine to be the best I could be at it, which was not a recipe for success. And so I did want to be an entrepreneur. As an immigrant, came here when I was really young. I always believed in the American dream, still do. I was always seduced by the opportunity that this is a pretty rare place on planet Earth where the guy or girl with a dream can actually start a company and have people that they've never met fork over a bunch of money and say, you know, you can do it. And that can be a path to greatness that, probably 99% of the world doesn't have access to. So when I watch TV and I see people talking about the dream being lost, maybe there's some truth to that, but it's still better than the alternative, which is most other places. I'm very grateful to be part of the fabric of, like all of us are, access to opportunity. And so I left banking in 2006. It's a pretty contrarian bet because you guys probably weren't born in 06, but at that point in time, the world was just on fire in terms of Wall Street, and nobody was leaving. The real estate bubble was at its peak. And I had this idea that I used to drink gin when I was young and after college. And all my friends were drinking vodka and tequila at that point in time. And I was like, man, how come gin has fallen out of favor? Because back in my dad's day or my grandfather's day, gin was all it was. Back during the days in the speakeasy during Prohibition, it was all gin and rye. There wasn't really vodka. And in the 60s and 70s, brands like Finlandia and Absolute came and kind of changed the perception of vodka, made it more edgy and younger, and gin kind of fell by the wayside. So in 1960, gin used to outsell vodka. By 2005, vodka outsold gin 10 to 1. in the States. Give you an example of the switch. And the reasons that I felt that was the case were because gin had sort of, you know, you had these brands that didn't really appeal to the younger demographic. They were stodgy and unexciting, didn't taste very good. I thought if I could address those, I'd be onto something. And I also wanted to leave banking. And so the choice between being an investment banking sort of associate and selling gin, I was like, man, it sounds like a lot better for me selling gin. And so I thought I would do a big step up in my lifestyle too. That was the first fundamentally flawed assumption of my entrepreneurial journey. I thought being an entrepreneur would be a boon to my social life. And so I started Bulldog in 2007. And between the period I decided to do it and I quit my job, it's about a year and a half of planning, thinking, raising money, strategizing. Because though every entrepreneur has to be able to take risk, the ones who do it well manage that risk well. And I didn't want to tell my boss to take my job and shove it, and then go out the next day not having the ability to pay my bills. I have to worry about that while also worrying about how to build the company up. So I encourage you, some of you will get that itch at some point in life to think about, should I quit my job and just go do that? Or is it better to just work nights and weekends and hustle hard and then leave it when the conditions for success are right? You guys hear me okay? It is like a new thing for me to speak with a mask on, so I'm trying to do my best. So I started in 2007, launched this gin called Bulldog. It was an homage to one of my political heroes, Sir Winston Churchill, and the British Bulldog spirit. Great brand, great looking bottle. And starting in 2007, I realized our big problem was we had an amazing brand, but no customers. And I didn't really know how to grow it. So within 12 months, I was like, what am I doing here? Let me just go back to banking. And then you had the big Wall Street crash in 2008. So I was like, well, that avenue is closed now also. I gotta make Bulldog into a success. And so the principle there was we had a gin that appealed to younger people that taste better, weight look, and that the liquor business inherently was cyclical. Every 20 to 25 years, people would start drinking, you know, they drank scotch or whiskey, would come back and drink bourbon, drink tequila. It's just a generational thing. So I was right about that, except we got lucky in Europe. We started selling in Spain. In a million years, if you told me that I started a brand sitting in New York, selling in Spain, it wasn't really part of my plan, but I used to get these phone calls from Barcelona all the time. Anyone been there? Barcelona, highly recommend it. It's kind of out of the storybook. I got these calls from Barcelona. They said, come see about selling Bulldog here. And I jumped on the flight the same day. And I went and saw this bar in Barcelona where I saw 40 bottles of gin. And right in the middle was Bulldog, the brand I had created. And there was like no vodka, nothing else. It was just, for me, it was like El Dorado. I said, well, how do I arrive at this amazing place? And I remember the Spaniards had this amazing way of making cocktails. That they serve gin out of these big gin and tonic glasses. They come to your table with the bottle, they put these beautiful garnishes on there. There's this huge theatrical experience. Opposed to like drinking gin and tonic here, where it's just out of the gun, it's bad ice, bad tonic. And so we got really lucky in Spain. We talked to people, we were in the right place at the right time. But Spain came to the rest of Europe, and soon we were a brand selling 80% of our business was in Europe. There's a large Italian spirits company called Gruppo Campari. They own brands like Campari and Sky and Wild Turkey and Grand Marnier and Aperol. They acquired us in 2017. And at that point in time, we were the 5th largest premium gin in the world and the fastest growing. And so I went from hustling really hard for 10 years, kind of killing myself, having nothing to do in like a 60-day period. That kind of sounds much more exciting than it is. And so after going through some withdrawals and whatever, I moved to Barcelona to play tennis. Every tennis player in college, like me, second year, who doesn't make it pro, has the dream to like spend their early 20s in Europe just playing tennis and bumming around. My parents were not very excited when I suggested that, so they forced me to go to Wall Street. But I wanted to relive that. So I was in Barcelona hanging out and had the time of my life. I hope everybody gets to experience what it's like to sell a company and just say F off in the world and go live in Barcelona. It's pretty cool. And then I had a freak accident on the tennis court. I fractured my ankle. And, I got surgery back in New York. And so I was laid up for 4.5 months in late 17, early 18. And that's when I conceptualized Halo. And, you know, I've never been immobilized by an injury. I saw somebody here on the lacrosse team who's great hustle, by the way. I really appreciate that you came here. How about a round of applause? For And so laid up in bed, I was like, what am I going to do with myself and my time? And I thought about in college, we used to drink Gatorade, and I don't know if probably sponsored by today. I'm going to be late because I know they sponsored in college, but some of the traditional hydration drinks I realized when I was in college in the late 90s versus today haven't really changed. They have some salts and some vitamins and a ton of sugar and a bunch of color. Some of the same stuff for the last 30 years, but the entire world has moved on in terms of how we hydrate, how we eat, how we drink, how important rest is, what the right workout schedule is. But that hadn't changed. And so the original idea for Halo was the next generation of Gatorade, kind of in a bottle. Low sugar, certified organic, more electrolytes, plus vitamins and minerals. It seemed like a great idea. So we started in kind of late 2018 with the ideation process. Like all startups, we were delayed. And we finally launched our sports drink on Feb 29th, 2020. We went live at all the gyms, Southern California and Equinox gyms in LA. We had a bunch of grocery stores. I was pretty excited. I was like, this is a great way to start. It's a very premium high-end accounts. 2 weeks later, when the shutdown happened and gyms were shut down for a year, most of retail viewed brands, that thrust a fairly unforeseeable obstacle in our way. It's kind of like, you know, you start out selling gin and then they tell you like 2 weeks later that gin is illegal around the world. I was like, man, that would be a tough thing to encounter. So the shutdown came. So the first thing I said to myself was, why did I even get back to being an entrepreneur? Right? I said, I could have been in Barcelona, not a bad place to have been writing out what I imagine would have been the lockdown. Could have not been doing anything. Beat the hell out of the amount of stress I put myself through. Remember I told you about the struggle? I'll tell you about the struggle then. So pandemic happened, we were late to launch. We launched and 2 weeks later, our three main channels of distribution representing 95% of our business were shut down indefinitely. And I said, what am I going to do now? We had to find a way. I said, and this is going back to like March and April of 2020. So if you guys remember, the mindset at that point in time was the world was ending, vaccines were 2 years away. We didn't know how long or how deeply COVID would impact society. And gyms were shut down indefinitely. We pivoted to online sales like everyone else in the world, but in beverage, it's very difficult to make money selling online because the product weighs a lot, so your shipping costs are very high. And the non-alcoholic drink business is a very low margin business to begin with. Yeah, I don't know those excess shipping costs, there's no way to make money. So we decided at that point in time to make a bit of a contrarian bet. And we said, what do we possess? We said we have expertise on hydration. 75% of us in this room at any given time during the day are dehydrated. Human body is 70% water. We live in a great country where everyone has access to water. Yet 75% of the people are dehydrated at any one time. It's a pretty alarming statistic. And some of the symptoms or ill effects of dehydration are fatigue, muscle soreness, et cetera, et cetera. And it can be easily solved by drinking water, yet most people don't do that. I think part of the reason is water is kind of boring and not everyone likes the taste of water. And so I said, we tried to solve that with the sports drink, but what is the next generation way to do that? We said we patented, or I shouldn't say patented, we perfected a system of hydration that involves vitamins, minerals, and electrolytes that all of us lose when you're sweating. Most people think it has to just be electrolytes, but no, it's actually vitamins, minerals, and electrolytes that you would regain on your own in the natural metabolic process. But with Halo, it just gets into your body more quickly because we provide these minerals, vitamins, and electrolytes in a more bioavailable way. And versus the traditional sports drinks and other powders, we have very low sugar. And we have tons of vitamin C for immunity. You have no caffeine in Halo. Yeah, when people drink it, they feel alert or more excited. We use these 72 ionic trace minerals from the Great Salt Lake in Utah. And these minerals are things that we are deprived of in our diets, most of the people in the Western world, like manganese, chromium, boron. We take them in their natural format, and we notice that has a major impact on how quickly people feel more alert and dehydrated. Very often, you'll feel like a 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. slump. People will attribute that to, oh, I had a bad meal or something like that, but very often it's just dehydrated and not wanting to drink water to solve that problem. So we decided we have this expertise. The whole world is moving to selling things online. So let's move to start selling these powders. I noticed 1 or 2 brands have kind of moved to powder format or tablet. There's a brand called Noon that was doing real well. So tablets, there's a brand called Liquid IV that does powders. But we found out that those brands, while they had a great number of consumers, there wasn't very convincing, very passionate brand loyalty. We found that people were drinking them because they were available, as opposed to, oh my gosh, this is the only thing for me. So I felt that this is a market, only 1 or 2 players that was growing really fast without a lot of affinity. I felt you could do it the Halo way and kind of do it differently than folks have been doing in the past, and find a way to hopefully succeed. So 12 months later, July of this year, we launched our powders online here and in the UK. And I'm pleased to report, like a couple weeks ago, we started in the 1,400 Walmarts. So Halo around the country. Kind of our best quarter by the end of this fourth quarter. We're going to be live. We're going onto a couple of naval destroyers where they're going to have Halo powders on them. That's great. It's a captive audience. And the women, William Mary men's tennis team is already sponsored by I'm drinking a ton of Halo, and I resume women's lacrosse after today. So we're kind of finally getting our act together. I always ask myself, beyond being like, an acute masochist, why did I get back into this? And I realized over time that something about that struggle, being deep in that struggle, and many of the athletes in the room, you know what it's like. Something about that struggle is really intoxicating. You hate it when you're in it. When you go to bed at night, and I miss the days where I was playing college tennis. If somebody told me that that would be the peak of competitiveness and intensity for me in my life, I would have really thought long and hard about that. Because I relished being on the field, representing my college, being with my teammates, eating. And very few things in life when you graduate college, for those of you who don't go into pro sports, very few things in life are ever going to measure up to the adrenaline you get when you're playing a sport. I'm not saying that to depress you. I'm just saying I want to set your expectations down. Try to realize what it is that drives you. That injection of adrenaline, I find something I can't live without. I'm sure there are easier ways for me to enjoy that than starting a company, but I'm supposed to get back into it. So it's a different level. But I realize that struggle is something I really enjoy. When you find yourself deep in that struggle, that's when you find out a lot about, hey, I went to class, I did my time in class, I studied, I have work experience, I was playing lacrosse, I was playing tennis, I think I'm ready. You never know you're ready until you face one company, and then 2 weeks later, you're told that every gym in America and most grocery stores are shut down in new brands. You're like, wow, all right. But you realize that you're committed to other people, that this is going to work. More importantly, you're committed to yourself that it's going to be the finish line in glory or nothing. Remind yourself that between those 2 binary choices, finish line and glory, once you've tasted that, which is what I had with Bulldog, I realized that I wanted it again, and found a way to make Halo, look at some of the trends that were happening in terms of increased online consumption. People want to be more sustainable, so obviously the powders are lower carbon footprint than the bottles would be. We looked at some of the other brands like Liquid IV and Noon, and we said people were not happy with their taste. We want to make our flavor be very easy to drink with no aftertaste. We think that as a result of COVID, people are much more focused on being healthier and ingesting less sugar. So we have the lowest sugar of all our competitors. During this time, we've also gotten a few celebrity investors like Andy Murray, the tennis player, Pitbull, the rapper, and a few other people are bought into it. Pitbull's great, let me tell you. He's a real, more of a venture capitalist than an artist. Stupendous guy. And so that's kind of Halo's story. We're here. Next year, we're launching hydration gummies. We want to make ourselves You're gonna love it. It tastes better than fruit roll-ups. And we want to be like, we want to make Halo synonymous with hydration. So we're gonna have a bunch of products in the premium hydration supplement space, powders now, and then the gummies next, and a bunch of other things. But I think we finally found some stability under our feet, which is always a very fleeting concept in the startup, by the way, that changes day to day. And I'm feeling pretty excited about life at the moment. So that's kind of the Halo story. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
How large is your company, and did you start it with the same group of like executives that you started Bulldog? Like, how did you approach that?
So we're eight people at the moment. 4 of the 8 we work together at Bulldog, and of my partners, yeah, I would say the ones I wanted to work with again, they've all come back with me. And then the company who bought us, Campari, a bunch of the executives of that company on their personal accounts invested in Halo to something. So yeah, I learned if you guys ever start a company, chance started to raise money. I know we were talking about that. You know, raising money, it's always a matrix, and it's competing priorities between how quickly I can raise it, where I can raise it from, who are the people, and you know, you learn very quickly that not all investors are equal. And as a first-time entrepreneur, when you start up and things aren't going well, which I should tell you, you should assume the first 3 or 4 years, you ask yourself every day why you got into this. Maybe that you. And during those times, you kind of realize what type of people you want to work with, what you don't. So the second time around, I wanted to make sure I was sharper about that.
How much did you invest into R&D? Did you have to do your own research to formulate the right like ingredients for Halo? Like what research did you go off of to form your product?
All right. So the research for Bulldog was amazing. I mean, I drank a ton of gin around the world. That's how I wanted to be better with Halo. We did probably getting the powders and everything live was probably about $1.5 million in terms of, you know, about 1.5 years. You have to have a full staff to do that. Most of our research was with a committee of really doctors and sports nutritionists and sports scientists. We tried to figure out, you know, in 1 hour of elevated activity, how much does a 180-pound man lose in terms of salts, or a 110-pound woman? With lots of analysis on. I said, I want to solve the problem, which is 75% of people are dehydrated any time, and they don't want to drink water to cure it. Sending them a beverage all around everywhere is a cumbersome process. Retail was shut down. I think these powders are a great way to get people hydrated because they're easy to carry. You can't take a bottle take this onto the plane when you're hiking or whatever. You should have one Halo everyone. So part of the research was how are they going to drink it and where? So we spent a ton of time on that.
You can throw it. Oh, yes. I would get that.
Oh, no.
Very orange.
That's-
That's great. My role in football is not catching or throwing, so my roommates will tell you I can't do that. I'll just directly. Yeah. So clearly, your product is a significant advancement in the field, but there are a lot of hydration or you know, there are a lot of similar products out there. You think, you know, Pedialyte, Gatorade. Talking about liquid IV. Your product may be better. What are your strategies for getting this product into the mind of the consumer and competing with some of these established brands? Because if you have a better product, obviously through results, you should be able to beat them out in competition. But you know, you have to get into the consumer's mind first. I'd love to hear what your strategies are there.
Yeah, that's a great point. Having an amazing product, creating an amazing product means nothing. People can do that. It's how you get it out and how you convince people it exists and remind them of buying it again and again to scale. That's where businesses are built. So for us, for me, my general style of brand building with Bulldog and with Halo is I like to look at the category as it exists today. And both in hydration as in gin before, it seems like everyone was in the world one way. You had all these gins that were Victorian and traditional British, and beefier and old, and just unexciting. Just like here, you have brands like Gatorade and Powerade, you have Liquid IV, and competitors like Liquid IV that all try to be either me too or just incrementally better than everybody else. They also look the same. Powerade, so our style with Halo was just like with Bulldog before. I said I want that Robert Frost poem, "The Road Not Taken." You know, there's 2 roads in the wood. Most people go one way. I said, what does it look like on the other way? I said, despite the fact that Gatorade, Liquid IV, and all these products exist, 75% of people are still dehydrated. So clearly they haven't solved all the world's problems, right? So I said, is there room for somebody? I said, yes, because it's a shift to online and a shift to people being more environmentally cognizant. As fast keeps growing, there will be continued opportunity for Halo. Liquid ID, all these brands are very US centric. We just started this, we're also selling in Europe. Usually I've seen that when supplements try to start here in the States, 2 to 3 years later, they make it across the Atlantic. So we want to be first in line. Liquid IDs, perhaps the greatest thing they did was the first mover advantage, right? And that is a structural advantage that generally is lost only through suicide. And so, like Blockbuster video, for example, versus Netflix. So for us, it was important to be there first. And I'll tell you, beyond that, it's food availability. So I said, rather than go to retail and it takes years to finally establish a retail footprint, we're on Amazon. If anyone can buy us instantaneously. And then how do we get the word out? It's the people who are communicating about it. And so for us, it's the right ambassadors, the right sort of folks who are doing it organically and with a lot of love. So that's what we do. And lastly, it's the taste. I think we hydrate better than anything on the planet. That I can prove to you scientifically. Taste is very subjective, right? And I'm telling you, I think in our research about Noon and Liquid ID, we found people were having allergic reactions, like not very positive. We said, if it was positive, they'd probably drink double. And so I said, for us, taste is a really important component of what we did. We had the benefit of seeing what they had done and also what we could improve.
I'd love to see a Pepsi Coke taste test
Maybe.
ad, but
Oh, we'll crush it. Oh, I can't wait to do that. We'll kill it. I can't wait for
oh, sorry, yeah, I'm not gonna. You don't want me to throw it. I tried to tell you.
I knew.
So you had a lot of big investors now. Was there any resistance or kind of challenges getting that initial backing
that. For the first time or for Halo?
for Halo?
No, they throw money at you if you have an exit the first time. It took me half a minute to, I'm not because I'm an amazing guy, but I'm just saying when you have an exit, your path is, people don't even ask questions.
All right, I don't know if I can catch this or not. It was a bad throw.
So I just recently retired and my team was doing a lot of biohacking. And it feels like we're in this age of biology, age of biometrics. One of the devices is Levels and Levels Health. So it's a patch that does continuous glucose monitoring that enables you to measure the metabolic health. And they've got this amazing viral campaign where people are posting on Instagram pictures of the app. And, I just ate pizza and, it spiked my glucose. Or I thought oatmeal was good for breakfast. Look what it did to my glucose. I'm just wondering whether there's a device that could measure hydration. And the quality of hydration based on some kind of biometric data.
So let me answer that question. We are already working with somebody who's doing something similar like the hydration patch that we're thinking of bringing out there, but there is a mechanism that to measure that, that's the human body. And the way I say that is, sorry, but if your urine is a pretty dark shade of yellow, that's the greatest indicator. And if you've not been taking any medicines that would make like that, it's a pretty good indicator that you're dehydrated. In professional baseball now, they actually certain teams don't let you play. I don't know how they even monitor that, but they don't let you play before a game. It's darker than a certain shade of yellow because of increased risk of injury when you're dehydrated. But that's obviously the most scalable way. On the one hand, is the education about that or the patch. We're going to try both. Thanks.
Hi, I was just curious
I was just curious about the debate on when's the optimal time to do both, or should you only be drinking water, should you only be drinking Halo, and what's that proper balance?
Well, the thing with drinking water versus Halo, it's not an either or. It can be both. Hydration is not hydration is a 24/7 process. The reason we tell people to drink Halo first thing in the morning is most people were sleeping for 6, 7, 8 hours before and probably not drinking a lot of water. So that's, for most people, generally the largest extent of the day where they haven't ingested water. So that's why we tell people to drink Halo, because it helps you hydrate faster than just drank water on its own. The debate why it's not an exact question is a lot of people can drink a ton of water and be hydrated, but still They've known that for 100 years, but still 75% of people are dehydrated even today. So that tells me that water alone isn't good enough. If water tastes like ice cream, I think we all died of internal drowning a long time ago. But you know, I think the boring nature of water hasn't changed. This is just Halo is just a different delivery mechanism to those electrolytes. You have Gatorade, you have tablets like Noon, and powders like Halo. So it's all day. We don't have a limit. We don't have caffeine, so we don't have to say, hey, you can only have 5, 6. But I drink first thing, I drink 4 a day. Now do it first thing in the morning, and while you're playing, especially you guys with an intense sport like you and with this humidity, I would definitely drink a whole bunch. The men's tennis team, I should just tell you, they do 2 boxes of Halo per student per week. Drink them in the morning, so that's 24, 6 a week, whatever that's, 3 days. And they never cramp.
I was wondering if you have an idea for like a larger application, like let's say we had a big thing for water during a game or like at halftime. It'd take like forever to like pour all those little packets in there. So does it come in like a larger tub to like be applied to bigger amounts of water, or is that in the works?
So we launched these in July, these powders. We got our first college, William Mary, a bunch of Kentucky, a bunch of other colleges starting in September. We said, look, we're going to use Halo as our, even though we're sponsored by Gatorade for powders, we don't have anything. And this has happened so much more quickly than we thought that by the end of December, we'll have the tubs. For mass, for enterprise, for colleges like this, it makes absolute sense. So yeah, we're on.
And you said there's no like cramping if you go drinking it and playing right after, like there's no issues with that.
No, we haven't seen anything. If anything, Andy Murray, the tennis player, he won several Grand Slams. He was known to have to withdraw from matches in the 5th set because of cramping. It's Halo over the last year. He says he goes out public and says, I don't cramp anymore.
As you think about building out your team, if you look at this list of things here on the wall, what are maybe the 1 or 2 traits or skills that you really want to have these new team members possess, and why?
So, Graham, I think when you started your speech today, you looked at that, you read out and pointed at that board, right? And I was sitting right next to it, and I looked at it and I said, which of these, I consider myself an entrepreneur, so I was like, which of these are relevant to entrepreneurial thinking? Not surprisingly, every single one of them. You obviously did a lot of thought. And I said, which one is more valuable? Could I rank these in descending order? And I couldn't because they're all necessary. And let me tell you something. If you're ever an entrepreneur, you don't get a choice on those. So don't ever think that, hey, this is an a la carte menu. I'll take openness to risk one day and improvisation the second. You don't, the way things work is you don't get served up a menu, right? You open the door and there's a circular firing squad on the other side of that door every day. So you got to think about which one matters. The one that matters to me really is grit. That is so you're building out the team now, and I keep looking at people. I just want a bunch of hustlers. I mean, there has to be a minimum level of intelligence, but to do what we need to do, or what people need to do on my team, high school degree is just fine. I mean, a William Mary degree is like a first-class ticket. We don't have it's an amazing degree, and you guys are going to do great, but I need that hustle. I need somebody who wakes up and is like, this is what I got to do. And I know there's going to be 95 obstacles in front of me. But despite that, I need to smash it and I need to kill it. And so grit is really what I value the most.
Might have some of that here, just saying.
I see that here. I mean, I know what it's like. William Mary witness the process, like the top-notch, top hustlers. I like these. You guys are. Let me tell you that without that grit, it's necessary to be an entrepreneur, but I would submit that's necessary in every aspect of your life going forward. You'll see right now, I realize your challenges in life when you're like, oh my God, I broke up with my boyfriend, or I have to study for a term paper or whatever. I think in a few years, you look back at those challenges and be like, I can't believe I thought those are challenges in my life, right? Life will get only more complex as you go. A high level of grit is necessary. And grit doesn't just mean you show up and I'm gonna work hard. Grit means hustle, right? Grit is both book smart and street smart. You're all book smart, just so you're William Mary by definition, I know that. How many of you are street smart? Probably a lot of you, and I'll tell you the ones who will exceed your expectations of life on the curve are the ones who say, hey, I'm gonna learn from people who did it better than me. I'm gonna shrink the amount of time it takes me to learn, or hopefully make less mistakes because I'm smart and I'm thinking about what other people did well or what they didn't do well. one of my favorite things at Bulldog and at Halo is I like to look at all the other competitors and see what they're doing, what I like, would I do this, why are they doing that, how would I do it differently? And I saw a bunch of startup brands who launched sports drinks at the same time that we did roughly. They decided not to make the pivot to powders, online, et cetera. They decided right out of COVID. I'm sure there's smart people who made that decision, but I think 1 or 2 years from now, I've always felt greatness comes not just from being able to analyze the past, but also from being able to predict the future. That just takes a lot of instinct and applying all the education you've had over a period of time to make the right call.
Hi, quick question. So you mentioned that you named your gin company after your inspiration for Winston Churchill. Is there any inspiration behind the name of Halo?
Great questions, by the way. You guys are making me proud of being alum. Back in the day, I was like, I'm really big into having a great brand name. I don't believe that's the only thing that matters, but I believe if you have a really good brand name that's easy to remember, that connotes positive imagery, it's easier for you to cement yourself in the minds of people. Right? I want to make ultimately Halo into a verb. I want to be like, hey, you know, you guys just did lacrosse, I do Halo again. I want to be like that, automatic. And so I wanted to always have a name that was easy, no more than 2 syllables, pronounced the same pretty much around the world, and connotes the same. Like the image of a bulldog connotes victory, positivity anywhere you are in the world. And so with Halo, I was thinking about who are the guys who have really cool names, and then liquor business is always these nightclubs that have like, you know, up in New York, had the coolest names. But there was this club in Miami called Halo that I worked with way back when we first started. I used to buy so much Bulldog, I never knew what was going on, but I'd always see them pop up in the reports, and I'd always think about this. Let me think about the top clubs, and I would also think about, I wanted it to have dual meaning, not just specifically the name of the club, but also Halo gives that halo effect of feeling better. You have a trinity of vitamins, minerals, and electrolytes. So it's your hydration halo, and that's kind of a combination of those two.
So something I'm always interested in is like, before you get your first round of funding, kind of what's the threshold level of either business plan or product development that you need? And then once you do get the first round of funding, if it's not in the billions, if it's only like the thousands, kind of what does that go towards to make sure you keep growing?
That's a broad, sapient question that the answer is it depends, because there's no one size fits all. Really, when you start up and you raise money, each round you raise is a bridge to the next round. So let's just start with, you know, I raise my A round, it's a bridge to my B. B is a bridge to the C, right? So you have to manage accordingly. So when you do your seed or your pre-seed, you're like, all right, a year and a half from now, I'm gonna be out there raising money. And let me tell you something, you're always raising money more often. Take that from me. It teaches you humility. Okay? It's most people don't have to sit down and present a business plan and learn humility when people are going to say this idea sucks, or they ask you questions, or they ask you some questions. They're like, on what universe did you even thought of this question? You have to go through that. So it teaches humility. It's a great exercise. Because some investors, especially a lot of mine, are super smart. Smart ones help you think about challenges differently, and they ask different questions than everybody else to make you think. And so I would always start with, I'm raising this money. I budgeted 24 months from now, but realistically, I'm going to be out there 6 to 12 months from now. What is the best use of this money in the next 6 to 12 months, so that when I sit down with these people or others 12 months from now, I've shown them that I'm crushing it. And so with any business, I would say, I would recommend you come up with, articulate a very clear set of goals and a pathway, like a dashboard of 2 or 3 things. Like with Halo, by the end of the year, we got to be live on Amazon all over Europe. We got to be on these. We have a number of colleges that we have to be selling at. We have all these things I got to do that sometimes I'm like, is that December 2022 or 2021? And I have to ask myself. And then I have to ask myself, well, why did I set these targets for myself? That's where the massive leap comes in. But you always have to think about what is the next round. And 6 months from now, when I'm shopping that round and somebody reminds me of this conversation today, what am I going to say? I think that's a better way to think about it. Great questions, by the way.
So I'm curious, as someone who is probably going to be going into finance, but who isn't actually interested in ultimately ending up in finance, Did you see value in starting your career that way? Like, were you able to leverage some of your experiences at JP Morgan in your startup career, or like kind of what was the transition like between those two?
I went to JP Morgan, I did mergers and acquisitions, I was an analyst, associate, so doing merger models, all that stuff, which at the time I was like, it's not so esoteric. There's not a day that goes by where I don't utilize like 90% of what I learned. I would not be an entrepreneur had I not gone there. So I would recommend everybody going to Lemonade, JP Morgan, Goldman, one of those places if that opportunity presents itself, because at the age of 22, you get to think about complex situations and problems far more quickly. And not only think yourself, but think with the benefit of much smarter people than you about those problems on behalf of your clients than you would pretty much in anything else. So working 90 hours a week, I have plenty to complain about, but in hindsight, could not be more grateful for that. So I attribute every moment of success I have to the training I got, how to write a business plan, how to speak to investors. You know, as a first-time entrepreneur, second, when you say you're former JP Morgan banker that speaks, that opens doors in our society. So very grateful for it. And highly recommend it, at least as a training ground.
Well, I mean,
I was just wondering what the thought process was behind choosing these specific flavors and if you're planning on adding any flavors.
Yeah, so we have, I guess, 4 flavors here. Orange is our 5th. So lemonade, peach, and pink lemonade. Well, lemonade and peach are like the biggest sellers for other brands in the category. Pink lemonade is something that, you know, a lot of people don't do, but it always conjures up memories of great fun when I was going to movies in high school. And it's our biggest selling flavor. I didn't even have enough. I couldn't bring you any, but it's my favorite flavor. And it's just one of those flavors that evokes fun and nostalgic good times when you were young. And you try to think about that when we do flavors. So next year we'll have a sweet tea flavor coming on and a few other things. We want it to be just always evoke, you know, and then we'll look at what was the best. We have berry, which is, you know, we looked at Kool-Aid, that was our number one. We said we want ours to taste like Kool-Aid, but electrolytes and low sugar. So kind of think about what is going to touch a chord and how can it be differentiated from the other guys. And then personally, I tried every single one of them with Bulldog, and I said which one tastes good, and the ones that taste the best. But you guys, see, not 21, so don't do that. Somebody back there? Now, I gotta tell you, coming here to listen to you guys, or you guys listen to me and interact, is something I did not have the benefit of when I was an undergrad. There was no, brand wasn't here, there's no place like this where people can come in and both incubate and shoot the breeze on ideas. I mean, this is like, you know, this is like practice for lacrosse or tennis or for football, just sitting here, but on intellectual stimulation. It's really, I'm really impressed to see that you do that. I think you guys are going to benefit immeasurably from that. But there's one thing I want to leave you with is that struggle is real, believe me. As you think about your career, whatever it is that you want to do, right? That struggle can be managed. You gotta love it, and you don't always have to go the hard way. I encourage you to think about going about it the smart way, whatever that means. You'll find your truth over time and you'll decide. Just remember that struggle, unless you love it, relish it, and you find yourself, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And most people will say, that's probably an amount of pain I don't need in my life. But for those who it is, it's pretty intoxicating. Thank you.